Tēnā koutou e rā rangatira mā, ko anaru toku ingoa, ko o au te koromātou e te whanganui atara. E mihi tēnei kia koutou katoa me te kaupapa o te rā, ara, te anamata o te kāwanatanga a rohi I te pitotonga o te ike a Māori. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Thank you all this morning for coming along to talk about, as Ben said, this slightly small topic that we have in front of us. There are so many people here from a broad cross range of the sectors that sort of make up the city. We have mayors and councillors, mana whenua, community organisations and NGOs, businesses, social service and education providers, union representatives and more. Wellington City is at a moment that demands a serious conversation about regional governance reform, about amalgamation potentially, because Cabinet has made a decision. To quote RMA Minister Chris Bishop, lead your own reform or we will do it for you. Either way, change is coming. The government has given us a deadline, the 9th of August. That's just 10 weeks away, actually slightly less than that now. 10 weeks to design and submit a proposal for a new council or councils covering all of the responsibilities of Wellington City, Hutt City, Upper Hutt, Porirua, the three Wairarapa councils, Greater Wellington and potentially Kapiti Coast and Horowhenua. 10 weeks to consider services, assets, facilities, rating, fees and debt. 10 weeks to have deep, complex conversations in homes, businesses, lunchrooms, sports clubs and community organisations, schools, universities, online and everywhere else. But let me be clear, we can't have this conversation properly in 10 weeks. The creation of Auckland Council followed a royal commission that ran for years. The public was deeply engaged. The result was something Aucklanders could understand and respond to. Now, I've heard the arguments about ignoring the government's deadline. I've heard that the government has provided no funding, that it's an election year, and that a new government might stop it, and that the policy is unworkable or unserious. Well, I've been in Cabinet, and I recognise that this Cabinet has made a call, and I'm not aware of any party signalling that reversing local government reform would be a top priority in coalition negotiations. But here's the thing. My judgment is that people in this region were already cautiously open to a conversation about change. That's reflected in the recent referenda in Hutt City and Porirua. Now, it's a matter of record that I was a reluctant candidate for mayor. I said no many times, but I became more curious. I followed council business in the news. I read old reports and delved into the issues. I thought I might have some skills that could help. What flipped me from no to yes? It was an inflection point, a single, very serious failure in my view. That when the government was signalling possible investment through a city and regional deal, when the need in this region was obvious, Wellington could not get itself organised to make an application. That, to me, was a failure of leadership in our region. If change to Wellington's local government is unavoidable, then who decides what that change looks like? Will it be MPs who don't live here? Will it be the global insurers spooked by our flood and earthquake resilience? Or international credit rating agencies warily eyeing council debt burdens? I don't think so. For me, the bottom line is this. Local people should decide the future of their local government. My distaste for the government's deadline is not a reason to surrender to a model imposed from on high, with no community say, no mana whenua representation, and no regard for what makes this place special. At serious inflection points, the mayor's job is to lead. That's why I'm taking the government's deadline seriously, treating it as an opportunity even. Because I was elected on a promise to talk with Wellingtonians about their perspectives and preferences on future governance options for Wellington, including regional amalgamation. An overwhelming majority of Wellington City councillors backed that promise by writing it into our formal triennium plan early this year. Wellington City is ready to have the conversation. We're ready to start today. So here's what I think about it. This city and region face a set of pressures that are not going away. We face ageing infrastructure, the urgency of climate adaptation, balance sheets reaching their limits, and a cost of living crisis that makes further rates rises difficult to bear. The creation of Te Ake Wai will change who manages water services, but it won't remove the underlying responsibility to ensure that those services work or the wider financial pressures councils carry that will always sit with elected councillors. Whatever our boundaries show on a map, much of this region already functions as one. We share a labour market, a transport network, environmental systems and cultural institutions. But no matter our similarities, we cannot deny our local identities. We can be a Wellingtonian and also be a Hutt boy or Porirua proud. The lived experience of a farmer outside Masterton is not the same as that of an apartment dweller in Dixon Street. Communities have different needs, different expectations and different costs of service. We cannot see much council alignment to tribal boundaries. Mana whenua connections to this place run deep. They've never stopped standing here. Iwi are significant economic players and cultural anchors. They share layers of interests across the region. So the real question is not whether local voice matters. It does, of course it does. The question is how to protect local voices while governing shared assets, shared systems and shared challenges more effectively. And at the moment, we don't always get that balance right. A region that can agree on its priorities and speak with one voice will always carry more weight than one that cannot. But too often, this region drowns itself out. We advocate separately, plan separately, and at times compete against ourselves. This weakens us with government, with investors, and with anyone trying to understand Wellington's future. I think it's contributed to the tired old tropes that you hear about Wellington and why we can't ever be sure of getting our fair share of the national pie. You could say it's been a decade since we last had the amalgamation conversation. Back then, the Local Government Commission proposed a single council from Miramar to Masterton, combining 9 councils. Public support varied between the local council areas and the proposal was withdrawn. Or you could say it's been happening since last November, when the government last announced local government reform. Because that's the thing, the 10-week deadline is actually the second version of local government reform that this government has announced recently. Following that first announcement, the region's mayors and the chair of the Greater Wellington Regional Council came together immediately to consider how to respond and protect local voices. The 4 metropolitan councils agreed to look at the issues together, along with Greater Wellington. The 3 Wairarapa councils agreed to do the same, but to stay in touch with the metro area. Kapiti has been considering where its interests lie. Horowhenua has interests to the north and south, but they've shown an interest in observing what we're doing here in Wellington. So the work has been underway. We think we've been doing it properly. We had a plan to bring evidence to the public, to listen to their feedback, and to put options together that people in the region could understand and respond to. And then the 10-week deadline dropped. While the deadline has changed, my principles have not, and I want to lay out 6 basic principles that I operate by on this work. The principles I bring to this work are the same you've seen from me throughout my public life. Firstly, the public must decide. Local government belongs to the people of this city and this region. It doesn't belong to mayors or councillors. It certainly doesn't belong to the beehive or unelected council chief executives. Any change to our local governance arrangements must have public buy-in. That means people need proper information and enough time. That public buy-in must be objectively proven. Once an initial proposal has been developed for government and before the detailed work proceeds, not as a formality, but as a real moment of decision. Ultimately, my preference is for a referendum. Secondly, local voice must be protected. One lesson from Auckland Council is that bigger councils can feel more distant. People fear that their council will be replaced by a remote bureaucracy that they can't influence. They worry that Karori or Kilburnie, Wainuiomata or Whitby will become afterthoughts. That can't happen. Community level representation must be real. If there is support for change, the structures we build must put more decision making into communities, not less. Third, we should govern at the scale people actually live. The four metropolitan councils, Wellington, Hutt City, Upper Hutt and Porirua, are a natural community of interest. We share infrastructure, transport networks and workplaces. People live in one place, work in another, shop and visit friends in the other places. Now, I don't feel I'm leaving Wellington when I visit friends in Lower Hutt or Porirua. And it's only since I became mayor that I have to think of people who commute from Upper Hutt as visitors from another city. But let me be clear about one thing. I do not support maintaining existing boundaries in a new structure. We must do better than failing to address these arbitrary lines through natural communities and places like Keneperu. Mana whenua partnership must be real. And I'm acutely aware of Wellington City's disproportionate population compared to the rest of the region and asset and revenue base. I expect that when the people of Hutt City and Porirua voted in their referenda, they were voting for regional leadership, not a takeover by Wellington City Council. Fourth, any regional solution must respect difference. Urban and rural communities don't have identical needs, and a one-size-fits-all model would be a mistake. Wairarapa has strong links to Wellington, especially through everyday commuters and weekend visitors in the other direction. It's 70% of our region's land area. But Wairarapa has a rural economy and its own identity. Any future model must recognise and respect that. If the region is brought together in a unified structure, Wairarapa should have strong local representation with significant delegated powers, much more than a community or local board. The Kapiti Coast shares a transport corridor, an economic relationship, and a long-standing community pattern with Wellington. But its people are just as likely to visit Palmerston North as Lyall Bay to do a big shop. The door should also remain open for Kapiti if, but only if, that is what the people of Kapiti want. Fifth, the case must be honest and evidence-based. We have to, of course, take the government's criteria seriously. Can it be done? Does it support the new planning system? Does it simplify things? Does it deliver better value and provide fair urban and rural representation? These things are all easy to say, but harder to do, and they are somewhat imprecise. We mustn't pretend that any case is stronger than the evidence allows. So any case needs to be made honestly. On what I have seen so far, I have no basis to think that amalgamation will cut rates in the short or medium term. The international evidence on this is thin, and Auckland's experience is also mixed. From what I know now, I could not make a case for amalgamation based solely on what it's going to do to rates. The sixth and final principle or point is that systems of democracy matter, including how it's funded. If the government is serious about having larger councils, then it also needs to be serious about strengthening democratic accountability within councils. Outside of Auckland, mayors have very few powers under the Local Government Act, councillors even less so. Auckland Council's legislation gives elected members specific powers to override unelected officers' preferences and to align plans, budgets and committees to community expectations. Outside of Auckland, elected members can't easily put a paper up to the council that they are elected to. I believe a full and hopefully reasonably bipartisan review of the Local Government Act is needed. In the absence of that, I will push strongly for any Wellington amalgamation to have strengthened democratic accountability written into its enabling legislation. Furthermore, the government can't expect significant changes in local government without broadening the revenue base. A region that's expected to plan for growth, invest in infrastructure, support resilience, and compete for jobs and capital needs access to broader funding tools than rates alone. A national bed tax with revenue distributed regionally would be a good start. Regional GST sharing would be better and a significant incentive for the government's amalgamation agenda. I want to say something about leadership. Change is unsettling. It's unsettling for the people I serve, and I take that seriously. It can also be unsettling for the people whose job it is to undertake the work, the elected members, the chief executives, the officers. But whatever our usual roles, our first responsibility is to put our communities first without regard to our private and personal interests. That's what public service is. When change comes to a community, leadership isn't standing back. It's not waiting for someone else to fix it. And it's not telling the public that it's unfair to be asked to do something difficult. Leadership is stepping up, taking responsibility, and bringing your community through. I spent my working life doing this. Around the bargaining table as a union leader, I learned you cannot bring people together by pretending that trade-offs do not exist. At the cabinet table as a senior minister, I saw that the best work is done together. And that's what we have to do here. That's why for as long as I am mayor, I will strive to maintain a respectful relationship with the beehive, regardless of which parties or ministers occupy it. The Prime Minister recently called on us to draw on our history and strengths to recast our systems and structures if we are to build the economic and social resilience the modern age demands. I don't always agree with the Prime Minister, but I agree with that. All of New Zealand is weaker if we cannot deal effectively with deteriorating city infrastructure, climate resilience, economic development, and job creation. Even if nothing else changes, there should be closer coordination between central and local governments to protect national security. Councils are responsible for critical infrastructure that must be hardened against shared threats, not left to depend on each council's capacity to pay. So that's the lay of the land. I said there are many unknowns and issues, but I'm calling on all of you to engage in a conversation about amalgamation regardless. And that obliges me to be crystal clear about where I stand. If a referendum were held today, even with all the gaps in understanding of knowledge and information, I would vote for amalgamation. On the evidence so far, I believe bringing the 4 metro councils in our region together could give us the scale and coordination that we are not achieving today. Take this for example. Council is a major shareholder in Wellington Airport. With new technology installed at the airport now, we finally have the possibility of long-haul direct flights for the first time. The interest from airlines in Asia is lukewarm when they think that we're a city of 210,000. Actually, our airport has a catchment of more than 500,000. And when they know that, that changes the conversation. I have no fixed view on an amalgamated structure. Whether Wairarapa or Kapiti or even Horowhenua is in, their unique identities must be respected. And I firmly oppose maintaining existing boundaries unified under a single logo. I do not believe amalgamation will cut the rates, but over time a metro council could help us to manage costs better and deliver better services too. My support for amalgamation is not unconditional. If in 10 weeks' time we have sufficient evidence to show that we are best served by maintaining the status quo, then I will say so. But I also believe it's in the interests of the people of Wellington City to take charge of our own destiny. If in 10 weeks we can give the government a clear view of where this region stands, the principles we are working to, and the time needed to do this properly, then I think that will be a good outcome worth striving for. So in closing, this is a critical moment for Wellington City. It's a critical moment for our region. The future of how we deliver for our communities plan for the long term, and speak as a city and a region is being decided whether we like it or not. I won't resign from my duty to lead the city through it. I intend to make this threat an opportunity, but I can't do it alone. We all need to be part of it. Every community organisation, every business, every union, iwi partner, and every Wellingtonian. We have 10 weeks to defend our right to determine the future of our local governments. I'm confident we can do it if we do it together. My challenge to you is simple. Talk. Talk to your communities, talk to your members, talk about what you think, about what you worry about what you hope for. And then let us know here at Council. You can email your thoughts or the collective thoughts of those around you to mayor@wcc.govt.nz with your thoughts. Any proposal we put up to the government can only be as strong as the conversation we have around it. That conversation starts today. Let's do it for the city that we love and for our region, which is a family, and for one of the best places in the world to work and live. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.